I want to welcome you all to the keynote address for the 16th International Wildlife Film Festival. It gives me great pleasure to bring Nikolai Drozdov here to talk about the status of wildlife and wildlife filmmaking through the eyes of a Russian filmmaker. And he asked me, well, what to cover. And I said, well, maybe the world from Russian perspective. And also what's going on in Russia, but also what species there are we should worry about in Russia. And I told him, people in Australia can't take care of the grizzly bears or the polar bears. They have to depend on us to do it. And we can't take care of the kangaroos. They have to do it for us. But wildlife belongs to all people of the world, and I'm sure there's species I never heard about in Russia that I should be worrying about, and with some opportunities like we've had here at the IWFF, we can start to do that. Plenty of worrying to do, so without any more, is Mary in here? Were you going to say a few words, Mary?
No, go ahead, Joe.
Okay. Nikolai.
Good afternoon, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. That's a point that we reached in our program, and it's my high honor to be here as a keynote speaker, because I can imagine that if not anyone, but many of you would be not less appropriate at this place. But you gave me this opportunity, and I will fulfill my duty. This festival that we joined to participate in is a very unusual festival, I would say. Not because only it is a 16th festival. It's very unusual for wildlife film festivals to be so, to have such a longevity, as we call in biology. This is a serious age at which, in my country at least, they produce passports to the young people. Before, we have only the birth certificate, and at 16 years we get passports, and then we can go abroad, can work, can do anything. So this festival, I think, reaches its maturity. That's very important. We took it seriously before as well, but I don't know how many of you, but I'm first time here, and I think that I would be happy to be at the previous festivals, but I'm really concerned not to miss any of festivals in Missoula that will be in the future. I hope. Yes, because it is the festival that is organized in a proper place, in a proper time, with the proper people. I don't mean myself, but all of you. And what is a proper place? The proper place is Montana, because this state is a fantastic place. Just if you think about all the world, each place is unique in some extent, in some sense, but Montana is a big sky state. And I would say that after the festival is here for such a long time, and we tried to find any other wildlife film festival worldwide, and we couldn't find such a mature festival as this one. All others are, some of them very important, some of them very enjoyable and informative, but not as one as old as this one. So maybe we'll call Montana as a festival state. But I don't think that everyone will understand us, because the festival is something, the word that is not adequate, understandable in different places. So, for instance, in Brazil, it would be understood like a place for carnival. for people to enjoy. But you see, there is a carnival here as well, because you remember how this festival was opened by animal parade. It is also an unusual feature of any of other festivals in the world. And I was so pity that I missed my bear presentation, because they promised me to make bear of me to roam along the streets of Missoula. I missed this because of Aeroflot bad schedule. Yeah, and the proper place is because all nature of Montana. If you think about United States, so you will come from Pacific coast, from Atlantic coast, like you feel this subcontinent and you touch it with your fingers on a globe. And you feel that you come from both sides, up and up and up and up and up, and you climb up there just between Bozeman and Missoula, where is a dividing range that shares water between Pacific and Atlantic. It is in Montana. And I wouldn't say that Yellowstone Park is actually in Montana, but I think it belongs to Montana in some way. Because you can't reach Yellowstone Park from the north missing Montana state. You definitely should land in Bozeman and then go down south. And just in one place you could see one mark that you cross Montana-Wyoming border. But Wyoming is, I think, let Wyoming people don't hear me, it's a part of Montana state. Yes. And yeah, you agree. And Glacier National Park, that also is not far from here. All they form so-called, they call it Yellowstone ecosystem, you know. But I would say that in a bigger scale, there is a Montana ecosystem here, with this dividing range, with all these mountains, ice and snow, and some subtundra habitats and forests, and first of all with grizzly bears. Grizzly bears are real imagination of this state. So I would offer you another opportunity to call this state grizzly state or bear state. And that's only to point that this is a proper place to make a wildlife film festival. What is the proper time for it? The proper time is because there is a spring. There is a spring when all wildlife wakes up. Just in nearest days, grizzly bears and black bears will appear from their dens. The first American robins come back again. They start to nest. So it is a spring in nature, spring in our souls as well. A spring that gives us a new hopes, new desires, that makes us feel younger. That is a spring, and it is a time for Missoula International Festival. So it is a proper time. And only I would say that the time is proper, but the schedule is too tight. And the proper schedule of this festival should be about a month or so, just to see all these nature wonders that we are surrounded with, but we couldn't see because of such a tight schedule of this festival. That's one disadvantage of this festival, but it's not a fault of organizing committee, definitely. And the proper time, I would say the proper time of this particular 16th festival is because it is in a time of a fantastic international political news that we would now be prepared to, and we will know about next week. I mean that meeting of two presidents of two former, I would say, former superpowers, as they call themselves, but now we consider Russia and United States not as superpowers, but supranations, I would say, because really there are two great nations that now, on behalf of those nations, two presidents, two democratically elected presidents are met first time in the history of both countries and the history of the world. And this is a fantastic, important meeting that will give us a hope for the new type of life on the globe, because relations between Russia and the United States are so important for the whole international political climate that you cannot build any better relation between other countries until there are two supranations become friends and start working at the same direction. And I understand that what American people works on, what are his tasks about building a better future for itself, and what we are now heading after this very dull and very dark years of, I wouldn't say much about the past, but now we are in a difficult position, and we should climb up from the, not from the den, but from the some kind of place that we crawled in, and we should find a way out. And we do not need any, how some people think, humanitarian aid or some straight financial aid. I'm strictly and fiercely against of this type of aid that sometimes is offered by some rich countries of Europe and sometimes from American organizations that try to behave with Russians like with some jobless or workless people or invalid people or so. We are not like that. We'd like to work, and we'd like to get help that nations that already had the long and hard way to democracy should teach us how to find this way in our conditions. They should teach us the methods, approaches of democratic development. And then we'll find this way by ourselves. We'll build this society by ourselves. And this is what we are really expecting of you. You know this biblical story about a man who wanted who was hungry, and one person gave him one fish, he ate it. Next day he came to him and asked him about another fish, he gave him again. Third day he came him again and said, give me another fish. He said, look, that is a stick, that is a hook, and this is a line, and please you go and I will show you how to catch this fish. And then he got this equipment, and then he didn't come again because he could catch fish by himself, but he didn't know before how to do it. That's what really I think Russia needs from some people who knows how to catch fish, just to teach them. This is a place, time, and people. And people is really wonderful, people who is here around. And I feel it just like, you know, there are some theories, very modern and very interesting theories about biofield that each person has. And there is individual biofield, and there is a communal biofield when people gathering in such a audience, they produce some like orchestra music. You are just sitting now and you being polite, you are keeping silence, listening to my blah, 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 I would say. But you see, you can't imagine how nice your silent biofield, the communal biofield is, that each one of us shares this silent music of our really friendly, good souls that are here united in this fantastic company of proper people. What I would say, the proper people, the filmmakers should be a bit crazy, more or less. And some of us are a bit more, a bit less crazy, but hopefully everyone is a bit crazy anyway. And that helps us to do things that no one ordinary people would be able and just would like to do. Because to do films about nature, it's something very different with doing films about political events, about meetings in Kremlin, or just something like production of wheat in a kolkhoz farm that some of my friends also do very successfully in Moscow and in Moscow environs. And some of them, just once or twice, some cameramen who joined our trip occasionally, they always ask us again. You see, we are so fed up with all this so-called floor filming when they are in some halls with respectful people who they film, and they do not leave these Kremlin walls or some huge halls and so on. They like to go from the floor to the natural ground to feel the soil, because you know that if you do not go upon the open soil and you always only move along the floors or asphalt roads, you will not have your biofield properly adjusted. You always should have contact with earth, with its electrical, magnetic field or what is so, but you need to go barefoot on the ground. That's what most of filmmakers in wildlife filming do. We have here not so many foreigners as we have in some other international festivals in Europe. But you can imagine that the United States itself is such a big country that to collect just people from different sides of the United States for this festival, it's already something of international event. And most of you reaching this place from Florida, from Los Angeles, from Texas, from New York State, you already represent some kind of international society, because I assure you that it's not one state, United States. That's why they are called states. So if no one of real foreigners would enter this festival, it could be called international. But luckily, there are some very distinguished guests from very distant and remote and not controlled countries, like Brazil, like Australia, no, like very nice countries that is not as far as Australia, from Denmark, from Canada, that is your neighbor and friend. And so, and least but not last, from Russia. There are two guys who found the way from such a distant and hard-working country like Russia. All of us represent this international body, and some of them were included in a jury or panel of judges that decided already about films that are represented here. I honestly do not know anything about these decisions that are made, because panel of judges is very honest and strict people, and you can just ask him hundreds of times and stay on the knees. They will never tell you anything about the decision that we'll find out just in a couple of hours' time. But I'm sure that this decision will be the most competent, most direct, most clever decision that could be made. Because a panel of judges is very representative, not only in terms of different countries that were represented in this jury, like Australia, Brazil, and other countries, but first of all because of people who were included. The panel of judges is compiled of the most prominent and experienced but young ladies that are really experts in their work at some aspect, not at some extent, at very great extent, but at some aspect. Either they are producers, or they are critics, or they are cameramen, and so on. Or they are just scientific consultants in wildlife filming. So this expertise was very competent, and we expect their decision with a very much hope that we'll understand which film is the best one and which films are the best one. But looking at those films that have been posed for competition, we should say that there are more than 100 films of very much diversity concerning their aspects. There were children films, or films for children or the audience, and I would say that these films are the most difficult to do. We've done sometimes some children's films, and we were really exhausted by doing something to be enjoyable for this small but very, very critical audience. Something that can be eaten by adults will be just strictly refused by children. So you really need to be somehow, to return to the childhood, I think, to be a child again by yourself, and then you try to understand what will be enjoyable for children audience. There are natural history films that are most interesting for me, for instance, as a zoologist, and that are quite difficult to film because natural history is so well-known subject in some way that to find something new in the behavior of animal or bird, and not only to find these new novelties, but to make them very nicely filmed and shown, it's quite a difficult task. Not less than that, there are environmental films that are always some kind of controversy, and when you try to explain why and what for this or that development is done, and you criticize it, so you would not so easy to find the proper tone, proper aspect, proper angle of vision to criticize some of things like building dams, watering land, or just drying it, that is done everywhere for a purpose of humans' well-being. And how to explain that some of them are needed, but not at such extent, not at this level, not in these methods, but any other. So to be environmentalist in filming, it needs so much of knowledge, not only in some zoology or ecology, but in many social sciences. So those who make environmental films are real kind of Michelangelo's broadness of mind. I think that Michelangelo is for you kind of the most broad-minded scientist, yeah? Wouldn't you object? Because I know some other examples from Russian history, like Lomonosov, but I don't know if you know the person like that. University I am teaching in, it is Lomonosov, Moscow, Lomonosov University. So it's my most beloved scientist in Russia. There are some interesting films concerning the portraits of people. It's very interesting to do because this is needed to be done. Because, for instance, a film, The Portrait of Roger Tory Peterson, it's a great man. So millions of people know the wildlife from his pictures, from his books, from his field guides. And there are so many books that are already on this type. They are not Roger Peterson books, but the type of his books that are spread around the world. And already not only one generation is learned and grown up using these type of films. this type of books and pictures. And so can you imagine how important it is to make a portrait of Roger Tory Peterson in the film. It is a charming, wonderful personality, and you can't just afford to miss opportunity to film him maybe once and once more. No one film is needed to make this unique personality to be just conserved in the form of the film. Very interesting film about native people, about such interesting process like hunting and fishing. The more tourists come to this place, the more interesting will be for you to join these groups, to film them, to help them to understand nature by using it in some way. I understand that a lot of people object hunting, object fishing as a torture of animals or killing of animals. I would agree at some extent with that, but for native people who exploit nature for their well-being, it's the only way to live. And another aspect is, if it is possible to exploit nature of this, on this way for pleasure, so-called sport fishing, sport hunting. It's some of controversy in it. I wouldn't discuss it now, but let's go further and say that these films are very enjoyable, especially for hunters and fishermen. It should be mentioned that particularly at this festival, where the competition is not so much tense as in some international festivals in Europe, where I would say, let's remember, many of you have been in Bristol sometimes during the Bristol Wild Screen Festival. It is biennial festival that was founded by the unique person, Sir Peter Scott. Nothing, just to say something superficial about this great figure. So I wouldn't like try to make a portrait of Sir Peter. Everyone knows and everyone respects him so much that I just remind you about his unique input in filmmaking as well as in all other aspects of wildlife and conservation. And he founded this widescreen festival in 1982. And he was just a godfather of this festival as many other things. And this festival in Bristol, I wouldn't like to make you feel inferior by praising that festival. But it is really such a strong festival where a competition of films represented and entered in competition is sometimes looking like a wrestling of giants, I would say. You see, and because films and companies that wrestle there for first places are really so strong and so big, so I think that many of films represented here could be just really not properly mentioned during this struggle for first places on Wild Screen Festival. But here you have opportunity to represent, to put in a competition list so-called low-budget films, student amateur films on any of above-mentioned topics. And you would be able not only to enter the competition, but just to get some prizes on these films. Because really students do and amateurs do make films not only on low budget, but sometimes on no budget at all. And nevertheless, those films are sometimes very, very enjoyable. Something should be said about conjunction and cooperation between television and cinema. And we know that many of our films are made now for television screen, not for cinemas. That's that's an opportunity, that's a challenge, that's a problem, and it should be done something that film will find his audience through the TV screen. And I think that most of TV films that are made now achieve this goal. And what is important to say about festivals like that, it is the importance of personalities. You know that each film is a teamwork, but at the same time we cannot avoid mentioning personalities as leaders of those teams, as monitors of new approaches, new methods, new explorings. And that's why I'd like to mention, after Sir Peter Scott was mentioned as a godfather of so many things in wild filmmaking, in nature conservation, and many of us feel ourselves like his pupils. And those who had really had luck to meet him really feel themselves like somehow taught by him and raised up by him. So we all are very thankful to him. But coming to the people around here, we would like to mention, first of all, the chairman of this international festival. It's very nice that he is now absent in this audience, Charles Jonkel. He just left a minute before, so I can talk about him freely without feeling uncomfortable. No, but don't you think I will say some nasty thing about him? No, not. So I know that I would call him if he would hear. If he would hear, I called him in Australian language. You know, there is a word, interesting word. It's nothing now to about. No, may I have a comment about one Australian word? I used to work in Australia for a year, so I just meeting some Australian friends now. I just so glad to refresh my Australian slang, and I would say that the word, I don't know if you use here in America, word, I always am very careful giving name to one bird. The biggest flying bird in the world is a bastard, yes? Bastard. 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 John taught me a long time to say it differently. But you see, but I didn't reach it until now, I think. But in Australian language, in Australian real proper language, it means they say it's different and spell it different, B-A. And there is a bastard, yes? Not bastard. Anyway, I can't reach this difference. But you see, it's interesting use of this word. You can call person you old bastard in his presence. Then it means in Australia a very friendly talk, very friendly appeal to say, "Oh, John, you old bloody bastard." But you never. It's explained in the O'Grady book, Aussie English, you see. But if you call anybody in his absence as a bastard, so he should be a real bastard then, you see. So now my good friend comes back, and I'd like to talk about him, but really nevertheless I would comment him in his presence anyway. I'd like to talk about you, but I slipped into Australian language and I missed. Yeah, you can go drink out there, yes. No, he doesn't like, he wants to listen, yeah. And I would say that the meaningful personalities are so important for events like that, you see. Because why Missoula? Why not Bozeman? Why not Los Angeles? Why not any other city in United States runs this festival. I would say at the very great extent it is because Charles Jonker lives here, but not in Los Angeles, not in Bozeman, but here. If he would live in another place, the festival would be there, I'm sure, because that's his special character. He's willing to run this festival. He's real brilliant teamwork with charming ladies that surround him. He's very tricky in this way. He is charming himself, but in some other sense. But what kind of ladies he surrounded himself with? It looks like it's no kind of sorry if I wouldn't compare you with a brown bear, but maybe like such a, how you call these flowers that in front of house you make it rounded lawn, huh? Border. So it's just like a hedgehog in the middle of the flower border. Looks like that. But very nice hedgehog, you see, I would assure you. Very nice hedgehog, very lovely, very friendly. And nothing to say about those flowers, you see. You can imagine whom I mention, whom I mean. That's Mary, Amy, and others. But the best flowers I mentioned. Yes, there are some others. And this personality, he's sometimes looking or behaving like a hedgehog, but he's a really man of a bear, the person who devotes his life to bears, to all bears of the world, not only for some grizzlies or black bears that live nearby. And the whole world knows him as a bear man, as the editor of bear newspaper, as a connoisseur of bears worldwide, and that's why we know him not only coming here, but for instance, I have my old friend, Professor Uspensky, Sava Uspensky in Russia, who visited Alaska and Canada many times researching polar bear populations, and he is a prominent scientist. It's a Russian bear man. And the best friends of him is Charles Jonker. And the only disadvantage is that Charles Jonker invited Sava Uspensky here many times, and they met either in Alaska or in Churchill or somewhere else. But Sava Uspensky never invited Charles to Russia. So he invited him, but he never afforded to make this invitation come true. And that is our first goal now with Sava Uspensky together, because he said me that now, after this perestroika and glasnost broke all these barriers, and we should take this man of a bear from Missoula to Moscow and further to the place where we surely know he will see brown bears and compare them with his grizzlies, and to tell us what is the difference, because now we are a bit incompetent about that. So please, you come, and I think we'll do something about that. And Sava Uspensky is a Russian bear man, and I have one slight experience with bears. Sometimes meeting them either in Kamchatka or in a forest, in taiga forest in Europe. And once I slept with bear, not in a den, but in a tent, but on the opposite sides of it. You see, it happened with me in the mountains of Caucasus when I was there up the subalpine zone where trees already start to be finished, and then a huge grass appears. And in this upper forest zone, I had my one place tent, and I, after excursion and collecting some herbarium and counting birds, I came in this tent, I was alone there, and I just entered this tent and tried to prepare dire, and so at that time a very strong storm very suddenly appeared, and it started raining. It happens in mountains very quickly, and then it started, I forgot these icicles, for hailing. And these hails in the mountains can be so dangerous because they start from small ones and bigger, and sometimes they are this size and they can kill cattle, can kill people. And understanding that I'm sitting in a tent and stronger and stronger this hail fall up the roof of the tent, I understood that may be dangerous, and I put my herbarium net, you know, this wooden frame with net. And I put them on my head and was laying with my head covered with this in case it will fall down. And this moment I felt somebody very big just pushing me inside of a tent. I did not understand who's that, but later I understood. He just pushed me inside, and I felt that this huge body, it will just fall the tent. And I pushed him back, because I understood only if I keep him in this place, and he will not enter inside, we will be saved from this hail. And he pushed me, somebody. I pushed out and said, who's that? I know that it was a nature reserve of Azerbaijan Republic. I know that no one could be here. And so, pushing each other like that, we spent about 15 minutes of heavy hailing. Then suddenly hail finished, and I felt he stopped pushing me, and then I hear it jumped on. I opened the tent, I've seen a bear, brown bear that was trying to hide from this hail in a tent. So I was really in touch with him. It was very pleasant experience, a bit nervous at the moment, but later on I remember it with much of pleasure. But another story I know, not about me, but about my friend who was hunting bears. I never hunted bears, never killed anyone. But one of my friends was a good hunter, good skier, and he also is associate professor of university in another faculty. And he once went to hunt brown bears in Yakutia. Yakutia, it's a place where in summer you can see brown bears in some places. And he went there in winter, because hunting in winter has its special charm, because you should wake up a bear who sleeps in a den, and not like some susliks, like ground squirrels or some prairie dogs, that their hibernation is so deep that they lose their temperature, they do not breathe, almost do not breathe, and they are stiff. So if you take them out of the den, you should spend about 1 hour to warm them up and to wake them. But with bear, it's very different. He just sleeps like us. And as soon as you push him with a stick, he jumps out and chases you. And so you should be a bit on a distance from him at that moment, and either you shoot him, or old Russian peasants went, before there was arms available, they went for such bears with one long stick, and they just killed the bear with a sharp stick that when he jumped out of the den. But this case was when my colleague went with one Chukchi person as a guide, and he said that he takes him on a winter bear hunting only under 3 conditions. He said, no, these simple people, those Chukchis, they are very simple in their minds and their saying. He said, look, you should run ski very good. He said, yes, I run ski very good. All winter I have some sport level about that. You should shoot very good. You should be a good hunter and shoot very good. He said, oh, look, I can just put my bullet on a 10 cents, 10 kopecks coin on 100 meters, like that. He said, okay, and you should be clever. He said, what do you mean clever? No, but from Chukchi point of view, something clever is something different of all other characters. He said, should be clever. He said, no. He said, I'm a associate professor at the University of Moscow. He said, okay, maybe it works. And he took him to this hunt, and they went about 10 kilometers along this snowy terrain with trails and some rocks and so by skiing. And in about 10 kilometers distance, they found one den, because then you can see easily when this steam is going from the hole. And then Chukcha hunter said to this Moscovite friend, he said, now you stand upon your ski and you should run very quickly as soon as I will wake this bear. This Moscow professor stand on his ski, prepared to run, and he waked this bear. He jumped out of the den, and this Moscovite friend couldn't find anything except to run very quickly on the way back. And Chukcha in front of him. And he ran, and this brown bear just chased them. And this friend said, I feel he's just almost his breath on my back head. And then he reminded himself, I'm a very good shooter. Why just so cowardly run away from this brown bear? He turned back and shoot him in the head, and brown bear fall down. And then Chukchi came to him and said, you are a very good skier. You are a very good hunter, but you are not clever at all. You are stupid. Now you carry this bloody dead bear to the settlement. He should run by himself, you see. Yes, so that's what they mean to be clever, you see. That's a problem. But nevertheless, you see, I never hunted bears, so it's not my own experience, and I really appreciate the people who investigate bears, who work with them. And another personalities I would mention, plus to Charles and his charming friends that are in the organizing committee, I would mention my old friend, Dr. John Sparks, who is here and who is presenting here a couple of series of his, no, let him listen that, his magnificent work of Realms of the Russian Bear, because really it is a 6-series film, but each film of these 6 can be presented as an independent piece of art and piece of work. And I wouldn't like to intervene jury's opinion, because they already something had in their mind. That's my opinion, because I worked with this film. And that's why. No, you see, Charles asked me to tell how is to film wildlife in Russia. And see, there are 2 periods in my life when I filmed in a teamwork. We filmed with Alexei so many years with our cameraman, and now I have seen how BBC Natural History Unit films wildlife, and it's quite a different experience. It's not because we are not as devoted filmmakers, Alexei and me, as a team of BBC Natural History Unit, but because of many other aspects that I mentioned in my previous speeches at this festival. I wouldn't tell more about that. And this type of people, like this zoologist, Dr. John Sparks, and another charming personality I met only for one day that have been here, that's Dr. George Archibald, who is the president of International Crane Foundation. These people are really monitors of all our work for wildlife filmmaking. And I wouldn't say as more of them will be, as better will prosper in wildlife filmmaking. I don't think there will be so many of them, like George or John. There are a few of them, but we really rely upon them in our teamwork. That's my comments about personalities. And the last, no, but you see, we finished all work with John, so it's not my, how you call it, if I would like, for instance, to please him with such words. I just commented for your information only. And the last point I would like to say about the future cooperation. Future cooperation with wildlife filmmakers, it is very important. And this festival gives us the opportunity to have new contacts, to restore and refresh our old contacts. And one great idea that appeared in this charming hedgehog's mind, Charles, he said me a very interesting thing that I never thought about, but now I'm trying to wake up in the middle of the night and think about that. He said, why not to make International Wildlife Film Festival of Missoula in Moscow, for instance. You see? Missoula Festival in Moscow. I don't think that Moscow will feel inhibited if they will have the branch of Missoula Festival, because we never had any type of such wildlife festivals in Moscow or in Russia at all. So it will be many years to work out such a festival independently. But if we'll rely upon the experience of this organizing committee, of Charles Jonko personally, so we can achieve not the same, but about the same level just in a couple of years if they help us in methods, in approaches, and just to teach us how to make these festivals. And that's why it will be Missoula Festival in Moscow. And I will be very proud to be participant of. And that's why this is my last idea about to work not only in filmmaking, but in organizing festivals. Festivals, maybe not everyone knows that we have already branch festivals of Missoula in India and somewhere else. Yes, so will be Moscow Festival will be not the first one of branch festivals of Missoula. And at the last, I would say one sad story about Russian characters, that if you come to Russia, you should know about some typical sides of Russian characters that you should always keep in mind. You see, we are rather rough, rather tough, rather something else. But one of our characters, I will show you an example that is a very sad example, but it shows one character that you will name after my short story. I heard, it was in newspapers, but I heard from some people here recently there was a big, rather big and influencing mafia group arrested in some New York area. Three leaders of this mafia have been one American, one French, and one Russian. You know that it happens that mafia here is very international. Not many Americans, but a lot of Italians, and some Russians already take part in this underground criminal activity. And the three of them, three leaders of this mafia group, were sentenced to death. American, French, and Russian. And what happened that this day was when they should be executed was something like Thanksgiving Day or something like that, official holiday. And at this day, they wouldn't let them go. That's not the case. But at this day, they offer the method of execution. And they put in one hall for execution, they put electric chairs, the already traditional method of Americas, and just for a change, they put also, knowing that one of this group is Frenchman, they put guillotine. You know what is guillotine? It's a knife that's going down. And so they let them to choose of two types of execution. And first was one American who came in, and he said, they showed him and said, what do you prefer? He said, electric chair, guillotine. I don't know what is that guillotine. I'm very conservative, as most Americans. Let me go to the electric chair. They put him in an electric chair, put these wires on, switched on, and you can imagine that in America here, but you know, once it was like all New York was out of light. You remember? This was a terrible night about 20 years ago. And this moment, something wrong in the wires, and no electricity doesn't operate this chair. And there was a rule that if execution doesn't proceed, you should let the person go. So they put them off the chair and said, excuse us, you can go. And when he just went out of the hall, he just passed a Frenchman who was prepared to go, and he said to him, no electricity. Frenchman came in, and they offered him again, because procedure should be fulfilled upon the rules. They said to him, electric chair, guillotine. Some technician at that time tried to make something to find what is wrong with the wires. But Frenchman said, look, guillotine, oh, I'm fed up with guillotine in France. I'm very opportunistic, I'd like to try your electric chair. They put him there, put wires on, switch, again no electricity, because technician didn't have time to. They let him go, and passing the door, he's seen a Russian who stand and waited for execution, and he said to him, no electricity here. Russian came in and they said to him, there is electric chair, there is a guillotine, you have a right to choose. He said, so stupid question, I know no electricity, I should choose guillotine then. But that's one of characters of Russians that you should always keep in mind when you have any contacts with Russians. It's not a stupidity, I hope you understood. It's just a sincere, how you call it? How you call this character? Yes, honest people, that's it, yes. Simple-minded, maybe, simple-minded, yes. That's it. So thank you for your attention. If you like, really, we can include in our address some slides about Russia that you can see now, if you like. Thank you for... some nature and animal slides that we prepared for your enjoyment. It is not officially included in keynote address, so. Ну что? That's long preparation didn't. Okay.
Is it this one or this one? Is it going the right way?
Вот так. Electricity doesn't operate. Ага. Какую первую? Какая из них первая? А? Ага. This is just some slides that have been done by Alexei and me during our travels around Russia with different places and different animals. These are colony of guillemots or guillemots. Guillemots? Colony of guillemots on the Barents Sea